So when it comes to getting compliments from your fragrances, most of the time that's going to happen from people that you actually know and associate with on a relatively often basis. These are going to be people that feel comfortable talking to you and feel comfortable saying that you happen to smell good. And so obviously it takes a good scent that's, mass pleasing in order to garner that reaction. If you're walking around wearing something that is not all that commonly accepted, that might be a different situation. But I think a lot of times people are really wanting to get unsolicited compliments from people that they don't know. That is less common for sure. I mean, people just don't really feel comfortable coming up to other random people and telling them that they smell good. A lot of times they do notice it and they probably have recognized that you're wearing something that smells good. They just might not want to say anything. Really, so the goal for today's video is to give you some options that are just really captivating, and maybe these will be enough to push someone over the edge to the point where they might reach out and say something to you even if they have no idea who you are. Nothing's guaranteed, of course, but if anything's going to do it, I think that these could. We're sticking with all designers here. We're going to try to keep this as affordable as possible. We're basically looking at $100 and under. We've got some that are $25, $30, some that are right on the line, quite a few that are right in the middle. So we're going to keep this relatively obtainable. The first one is going to be Davidoff Cool Water Wave. This one's got grapefruit, juniper, sea notes. It's always gotten compared to Invictus Aqua, which I definitely think is a pretty solid comparison. I wouldn't say that it's a straight up clone of Invictus Aqua or Sassy Howis or Mont Blanc Legend Spirit or whatever, but it's definitely in that ballpark. It's in that category, has bits and pieces of that, but it also has more of a clean, fresh, kind of aromatic touch going on that isn't as prominent in some of the Invictus Aqua scents, where they do get a little bit more bubblegummy sweet. This one backs off on that a little bit, taking a cleaner approach. Now the thing that's nice about this is it's like $20 all day long, 20 to maybe 25 when we're shopping on discounters, which is a really good price. Howis is, anywhere from 40 to 50. Legend Spirit is around 40. Invictus Aqua, of course, is just into the hundreds because it's discontinued. So this is one of the more affordable smelling versions of that DNA with their own twist, which I really respect. It's a really, really good people pleaser. A lot of people are just going to think that this smells fantastic, and this might do the job for you. Okay, next up we have Mont Blanc Explorer, just the original one, which is a clone of Creed Aventus. Very popular. The reason why it's so popular primarily is because of the complement factor that it provides. At one point, there wasn't a market full of Aventus clones. And so there was a point where if you wanted to smell like Aventus, you had to buy Aventus, which is very expensive. It's still expensive now, but back then I think it was even a little bit more expensive on discounters. I could be wrong on this. Retail price has done nothing but gone up, but I think at one point discounter prices were higher on it then than it was now, because I've seen this one down into the low 200s. I don't remember that being the case back then, but I can't remember that much either. Bottle sizes have changed a little bit over the years too, which could factor into that, but neither here nor there. Still expensive stuff. Mont Blanc Explorer is around $40 to $45, so really good price point. There are other clones out there, Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Man, and then all of its flankers, the Eau de Parfum and the Parfum and limited edition Parfum and so on. And then from a myriad of other brands, clone brands or not, there's something out there from just about everybody that smells somewhat like Aventus. This is going to be one of the more modernized mainstream versions because it's coming from an actual designer brand here. So I think this one has a little bit more reach because most people haven't heard of Armaf or Al Haramain or anything like that, but a lot of people have heard of Mont Blanc. And this is also available in all retail stores pretty much, so it's just a lot more widespread. But I don't recommend you pay retail for this one when, again, you can get it for around $40. This DNA, it just works. And again, the reason why it rose to fame was because of that mass appealing factor that probably did garner a lot of attention from random people, given that at the time especially, it was so unique and groundbreaking. Next up, we have YSL Eau Fresh. The Eau de Parfum is definitely the most popular for good reason. It's a fantastic scent. The Eau de Toilette, I'm sure, has gotten around a little bit, and I would say next up is just probably the Le Parfum in terms of popularity and usage outside of the fragrance community. Those are kind of what are going to be holding it down. This one is technically discontinued, so you're not going to be seeing this one in a bunch of retail stores. It's on discounters for like 120 right now, but it's also just, I would say, probably the least popular of the line, either this one and Y Live. But even Y Live got a little bit of, attention here and there somewhat. Lemon, ginger, mint, juniper berries. It's by far the freshest of the line. If the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette and the Le Parfum and all the other ones, if those are too sweet for you for a summer scent, this is the solution. It is amazing. It has a real nice bright sparkle off the opening from that ginger mint combination and some of that lemon citrus as well. Love this stuff. Absolutely love the opening. It's just so invigorating and bright, and that definitely gets you intrigued, and it makes you want to stick around to see what the dry down brings, which also is really good too. I would say one of the only negatives to this one is it doesn't perform as good as the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Parfum Intense and the Le Parfum and all of those, right? Those are all pretty much beast mode. The Eau de Toilette is probably about on the same playing field as this one, honestly. And it's not that it's a bad performer, it's just it's always going to get compared to the other flankers, which perform better, which kind of makes this one at a bit of a disadvantage. But bear no mind, it's still a very solid performer that's going to have you stand out compared to the other ones, which might be a benefit. Next up, we have Rabanne Black XS. So Pure XS, fantastic. Pure XS Night, even better, but discontinued. Black XS has been around for a long time now, and it now is kind of in this bottle, which is what Pure XS comes in. They kind of changed things up a little bit. If you were to buy this now, this is what it's going to look like. Citruses, lemon, praline, patchouli, a really nice mixture of kind of sweet and syrupy and a little bit gourmand, mixing with a nice bright lemon freshness. And trust me, the lemon comes through very, very strong off the opening. Like, you don't expect it, given that this is primarily a sweet scent. But when you do open this one up, I mean, super sour, punchy lemon. And I like that. It's yet another thing that kind of throws you off a little bit, but in a good way. Now, as far as uniqueness is concerned, this isn't necessarily that. That's not how I would describe this one. But it is the perfect combination of fresh and sweet, which is typically what excels in terms of getting compliments. And I think a lot of that has to do with some people like fresh fragrances, some people like sweet fragrances, and if you combine both of them, then you're appealing to even more people. That's kind of one of my theories. The other thing is that just for whatever reason, that style tends to work better. And so when you're wearing this one, you're just going to have that extra boost needed to really catch people's attention. Not to mention it's a good performer as well for a relatively decent price. You're looking at around $50 or under for this one, which is really reasonable. It's definitely a lot more affordable than the 1 Millions and a lot of the Invictus fragrances. So it's a really good beast mode release for affordable price from Paco Rabanne. Sticking with around a $40 to $45 price range, up next we have Dylan Blue by Versace. Very popular. This is Bleu de Chanel, this is Sauvage. As far as the popularity contest is concerned, I mean, the Chanel is probably going to be still more popular. Bleu de Chanel and Sauvage, those two are still probably just going to have more reach than this. But this is in the same category, a blue fragrance, which is primarily ambroxan focused with some citrus freshness and a bit of a C note going on, and then kind of a smoky incense patchouli combination as well, which actually sweetens this one up a little bit, which is what I like about it. And that is what separates this from Bleu de Chanel and Sauvage. Because the original Sauvage all the way through to the Parfum is primarily fresh. Now the Parfum does introduce and focus more on sandalwood, but still fresher leaning, okay? At least when you compare it to Dylan Blue, which has a ton more sweetness from that incense patchouli combination, smoky and rich. Dylan Blue, Bleu de Chanel doesn't really have much of that. It has an incense, but not in a sweet type of way. Then Sauvage Elixir, it gets a lot more warm and spicy, but then that smells nothing like a blue fragrance really. So this one kind of stands on its own because of that. And I also think that because of the way that this one is built, just with that combination, again, fresh and sweet, aquatic and smoky, just a whole bunch of stuff going on, it just works so well. The barrier to entry for this one is a bit lower due to the price. I mean, Sauvage, look at how popular that stuff is. Dylan Blue de Chanel, look how popular that one is. Those are both $100 or more, right? Even on discounters. This one's $40 to $45 on discounters. So more people are going to be able to get their hands on this one. But that being said, I still think this provides what it takes to give you that added boost, to stand out and to grab some attention. Now, if you really want to smell unique, but still stick with the designer and still stick with kind of a modern style of men's perfumery, being that it's sweeter leaning, this is going to be a good option for you. Hugo Boss the Scent Magnetic. It's got that iconic Maninka fruit note with some vetiver and some bran. So it kind of has this powdery wheat type of smell, mixing with the nice, sweet, creamy, and smooth vanilla. And then had a little nat land on the bottle. You get some of that Maninka fruit, which is sweet, fruity, and just very unique. You don't see that note used ever, aside from Hugo Boss the Scent fragrances, which pretty much all of them up until the newest Elixir one was marketing using that. So, you know, that's kind of what their thing is. And a few other fragrances on the market have used it, but still not to the level and not to the mainstream level that Hugo Boss has, which makes all of these stand out. It's so distinct. You know, like I've said before, you can't miss it. Kind of like violet leaf incense. You know, it's kind of this ozonic, slightly watery type of smell that you always pick up on it when violet leaf is present. That's Maninka fruit. It's hard to miss. So chances are if you pick this one up and you smell it and you notice something different about it and you can't quite pinpoint it, you know, that's the Maninka fruit. So this is a really good scent to get into if you're new, because it's like something that's very, very prominent, that at least you could check that off the list in terms of what you can pick up on. But I love this one. It still maintains that successful DNA, just with a really different kind of powdery, dusty, sweet twist that sounds a bit odd, but works really well. Next up, we have Ralph's Club Parfum. Got lavender, apple, clary sage, and vetiver. Love the bottle, love the cap. Kind of has that flask deal going on, which is pretty cool. So we're up to the Elixir now. Well, actually, kind of going backwards, we're up to the Eau de Toilette now. So we have 4 of these in total. The Eau de Toilette being the newest, which is just kind of weird to say. But the Elixir was out, you know, the release before that. So as far as these are concerned, they're all really good. The Eau de Toilette is nice. It's going to be fresher, no surprise there. As far as what I think is worth picking up, it's going to be leaning more towards the Parfum and Elixir. The Eau de Parfum is still great, but also I think the others are better, you know, and that's a very common thing. As you progress through flankers and they continue to you know, kind of raise the bar every year and to make, you know, little changes that actually improve the value of the scent, you kind of get to where that original just isn't worth picking up anymore when you have these other options. Not saying it's a bad scent. You know, if you've owned it from the beginning like I have, still great. Still something you could wear and it's going to work well. But if you're on the market and you'd only have so much to spend, I would look into something like the Parfum. You know, it's that very new style aromatic DNA that just works really well. Very similar aromatic package to what's being used in Y Eau de Parfum, just without all of that sweetness. You know, this does have some of the apple, but nowhere near as sweet, a lot more fresh. Next up, we have Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Intense. So this one's grown on me so much. I think it's really, really good. Probably one of the best Born in Romas. Green Extravaganza is great. Has a coffee accord, which is a little bit bizarre, like a green mixture, like a green fragrance and then some coffee thrown on top, which I like. But I think this one's going to be more successful overall, given just the take that they went with this. It's got vanilla, lavender, and then a nice woody, soapy vetiver here in the dry down. So another example of sweet meets aromatic and fresh and woody. A little bit soapy too from the type of vetiver that they're using. But I really like it a lot. It kind of looks boring and sounds boring on paper, and maybe it is, right? But there's something about it that just works. And even if you yourself don't like it, if it doesn't excite you all that much, if it's not all that unique, other people are going to absolutely love it, and that's kind of the whole purpose of this video anyway. Okay, next up we have Tumi Continuum. This bottle is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why I bought this. It's a 200 ml, okay? I don't need this much. You probably don't need this much. But look at that thing. I mean, it's insane. I mean, just look at it compared to my little bottle of Fomo, you know, Intense. I mean, that's insane. It's got amber, suede, tobacco, and olebanum. That's my type of note breakdown right there, and that's what drew me into this one, and that's probably why I got trigger happy and just bought the giant bottle for some reason. And I will say, it does hold up to kind of what I was hoping for, a really nice, modern, sexy, smoky, and rich tobacco scent. That is amazing. It almost has the same type of tobacco and cinnamon spicy combination used in Spice Bomb. So it's almost like Spice Bomb meets, you know, kind of a Dolce & Gabbana, the one tobacco ambery style. I'm just spitballing here. I'm not saying that this is a clone of those or that, right? It's just kind of trying to, you know, leverage other popular fragrances to give you an idea of where this one sits at. So it's got some of that spiciness, has that nice sweet, smoky tobacco ambery smell as well. It's kind of where this one fits in. And so no surprise, I absolutely love this stuff because I also love those other fragrances that I mentioned. And it does remind me of bits and pieces of those with its own twist. I'm not sure what the price is doing on this one right now. I know it hit discounters, like it's on FragranceNet and things like that for, I think, under $100 for 100 ml. Somewhere around in there. So it's really pretty reasonable. It's not any more expensive than what, you know, Spice Bomb Extreme goes for or anything like that, right? So definitely reasonably priced and might even drop down a little bit more. You know, one cool thing about these is the cap. You know, not everybody cares, but a metal cap with a little, you know, dial that you twist to lock it. I mean, completely, you know, unique, custom presentation, just really cool. The scent is even better. Eau de Parfum concentration. It's a strong performer, just nice, sweet, and seductive for fall and winter time. Ferragamo Uomo, the original, has sweet notes and tonka and ambroxan and a whole bunch of other sweetness going on. Tonka bean, for sure, right? Just a whole bunch of stuff. And it kind of has a bit of a dessert, chocolatey tiramisu type of smell. So it actually does smell a little bit edible. It's like that mixed with a little bit of a slight cappuccino coffee accord too, which is just delectable. And I think that's what tiramisu is. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not that fancy, but I think it's like a coffee dessert, isn't it? Regardless, it has this edible, coffee, chocolatey type of deal going on with a bit of a bright fuzziness, and that would be from the ambroxan that you get primarily off the top. You know, this is not a blue fragrance, right? You just see that note utilized with those often at the forefront. In this instance, though, it just gives it a nice bright sparkle off the opening, and then it dries down to being very, very sweet and gourmand. It is ungodly sweet, and I'm just going to double down on that because it is. So this is not going to be everybody's favorite scent, but for about $40, it's a beast mode, really, really kind of different style of a designer scent that a lot of people will really appreciate, but maybe not everybody. Next up, we have Alharmain Detour Noir. This is a clone of Parfums de Marly Layton, which is a very, very popular DNA right now. Just the apple, cinnamon, vanilla, tonka bean mixture. That's just what everybody wants. You know, Layton is expensive, $200+. This is $20. So really low barrier to entry. And I love that. It allows people to get into this DNA, to get into this smell, without just having to spend an ungodly amount of money. So I can't, you know, go wrong with that. Last up for this video, we have Givenchy Gentleman Eau de Toilette Intense. It's got cardamom, cedarwood, and iris. This is going to be one of the fresher takes within this DNA, still maintaining iris. A little bit of a kind of dusty, powdery, and slightly fresh iris. It's not as sweet as found in like Dior Homme Intense, Valentino Homme Intense, and so on. But also isn't as fresh as like a Prada L'Homme iris. But they are freshening the overall scent up, just using the aromatics and the cedar and things like the cypress note. So it's woody, it's a bit more fresh and clean and kind of musky, but then you're getting a little bit of a semi-sweet iris to just tie it back into the line. If you wanted more of like an everyday wear version of Gentleman, you know, then this is gonna be it. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. A few fragrances that are gonna pull compliments from complete strangers, possibly. Again, it's never guaranteed, but I think these do have what it takes to just really turn heads and get people talking. I will link each and every one of these down below. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.